guys, welcome back to another episode of Wealthy AF. And in today's podcast, I have Jeremy D. Murphy. And Jeremy has a background as a professional personal trainer, boxing and kickboxing instructor. He's also been a pro MMA fighter, and he's also a certified confidence coach. And his purpose is to empower and coach men to help them navigate what our culture likes to call a midlife crisis. In today's topic, we're going to be talking about, are men better off than women after a divorce? Hey, Jeremy, thank you for coming on, brother. Welcome to the podcast.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This is going to be a great opportunity to share with you and your audience to talk about some very powerful issues and topics that I don't think are being talked about quite enough.
Awesome, man. I'm excited to have this conversation with you, brother. So, Jeremy, why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself first? I know I didn't do, my intro doesn't do enough justice. Why don't you tell us a little bit about more yourself and your background, and most importantly, what qualifies you to be a men's coach and help men around these issues?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm a personal trainer. That's kind of what I've been doing. If you would say by day and by night, confidence coach, if you will. Mm-hmm. So my background is, I started fighting in, I started martial arts in my college career. I started with actually karate. And then as I found success in karate in my college years, competing in tournaments locally, regionally, nationally, internationally. That was around 2005-ish. In 2007, MMA was just bubbling up, and I decided I wanted to get into MMA. So I found this gym. I moved to NorCal, got married, in the process had 2 kids, and moved to NorCal, and I started training with this gentleman named Kung Lee, who was very popular at the time. He had a gym in San Jose. So that's where I first got my introduction to kickboxing, like full contact fighting. So I started with amateur kickboxing, then I went to amateur MMA, and then I went to professional MMA. And I went to a couple of gyms that I trained at during that process. And to answer your question, as part of my process of growth, one of the things that happened to me is while I was training in mixed martial arts, I in the beginning, I was working kind of regular job, like regular 9-to-5 job. And at some point, my chiropractor, the guy that would put me back together after training and fights, suggested I become a personal trainer. It wasn't even actually my idea. It was his idea. And at the time, I thought, well, this whole retail world isn't working for me. So why not? So I got a certification real quick, became a personal trainer, started at a gym in a town called Walnut Creek, which was called LA Boxing at the time, which was a kickboxing gym and a personal training gym. So I got to do boxing and kickboxing classes, and I also got to do personal training. And I was already doing some of that at the different gyms I was training at for MMA. I was already doing classes and learning about, personal training, mitt work, some of these things. But this first opportunity gave me a chance to blend all these 2 worlds together, the world of personal training and the world of kind of like fight coaching, even from a fitness perspective. So anyway, long story short, that's how my personal training journey began. I've been doing personal training for over 10 years. But as I've gone through my personal training process, as I've worked with many men, women, young people, I've been able to be privy to a lot of people's challenges, trials, and tribulations. And I never really gave advice per se, because most of the people that I was training had, more success than me. They had bigger houses, cars, homes, these kinds of things. But I would just share my philosophies. Much of it came from martial arts. I would just share my theories. For example, something as simple as the way you do anything is the way you do everything, right? Things that I kind of grew up in the martial arts world, kind of hearing over and over again. And I would just talk, and I learned in that process that I was actually not just training people, but I was actually coaching people. Because that's what like life coaching is. It's not telling people what they should do. It's helping people sift through their mind to find an answer that makes sense for them. All right. And so I was already doing that. So 2020 hit, and it occurred to me that I should actually take the life coaching aspect more seriously. So I got a certification, actually got 2. The first one was a Jay Shetty certification. And I started adding this kind of element into my coaching more deliberately, to my I processed it into my brand more deliberately. However, what also happened in 2017, I was doing an MMA fight. I fought in Bellator, which at that time was the second largest mixed martial arts organization in the world. And this huge fight was really important to me. But in the process of that fight, I had lost my coach, essentially. My coach at that time, Walter Pops Carvalho, who was like a father figure to me. Prior to meeting Pops, I was having a very hard time being successful in MMA. I met Pops, and Pops made me successful almost instantly. Right? My first fight with Pops.
What did he do? What did he do that made you successful?
That's a great question. So, because I had many coaches and trainers and martial arts, people, mentors throughout the years. But Pops was the first person that I met that his track record of success was large, was extensive, and it was consistent. And he had one way of doing things. And if you didn't do things his way, you were out. It was his way or the highway. He was very clear. He was very focused. And his whole intention was, you are going to knock the guy out. I'm going to train you in such a way where you have knockout power. I'm going to make you dangerous. And one of the best things about Pops is Pops had a method where he was so invested and he was so confident in his method that even if you didn't have confidence in yourself, you couldn't help but to buy into his confidence in you until you built your own confidence in yourself. He was that kind of guy. So let me say that again. Let me say that again because some people might not catch that. His conviction and his method was so strong that you could not help but to buy into his conviction, and you rode that until you build your own conviction in yourself.
That's amazing. How has that helped you? Those teachings that he gave you help you navigate through life?
That's a great question. But let me finish by answering your first question real fast because it all makes sense. So Pops trained with me. My first fight under Pops, I got a 17-second knockout. My next fight under Pops, I beat this kid I wasn't supposed to beat. My next fight under Pops was this Bellator fight I was just mentioning. Going into the Bellator fight, Pops and I were training. We were training January, maybe February, and all of a sudden in February, he doesn't show up for a training session, which was very uncharacteristic of him. I found out he's in a hospital. I fought somewhere in like April, right? And first we thought he's in a hospital. He was like 83 by the time I met him. I'm still not sure what it is exactly he passed away from, but at this moment, he's in the hospital. So me and all my buddies that he's trained, we're thinking, okay, it's just a temporary thing. He's going to get out of it. I continue training with his son, Jeff. Jeff kind of takes over my training camp. Me and Jeff go through the fight. We get to the fight. We win the fight. Huge thing. Knock out this kid, in the last minute of the last round. I come back to Pops. I tell Pops, hey, we did it. We celebrate. By the time I come back to Pops, he's lost a lot of weight and he's no longer able to articulate. He can no longer speak. So it starts to become clear that he's not going to make it. So what I went through was a process of losing a man that was like a father figure to me, death of a loved one, which sent me into a depression. And around that time, like I mentioned, I'm married, kids. But around that time, 2017, I already knew that my marriage was struggling. The person and I would have drifted apart. 2018-ish, we got counseling, year and a half. Great. I didn't feel it really helped that much. I asked for a divorce. So I went through, so there's death of a loved one, there's depression. I asked for a divorce. And divorce is always harder than you think it's going to be. Whatever you think divorce is, add 10 times on it. Add 10 times as hard as you think it's going to be, and you might be somewhere in the vicinity of how hard it's actually going to be. You might, right? So then I went into a deeper depression. And part of that is, the reason why I say it's harder than you think, especially if you're a man, is because in the way our society is built in this day and age, if you're unhappy in your marriage, it's your fault. If your wife is unhappy in your marriage, it's your fault. Everything is your fault. Now, to some degree, that actually makes sense. But there's a level of that where the man almost is no longer a man. It's almost as if he's no longer a person. So what I experienced and what many people that I've worked with experienced is this separation. You could become like a pariah without anybody knowing any of your side of the story. Like, I didn't cheat on this person. I didn't gamble. I didn't around. I didn't put my hands on this person in a violent way. I didn't do any of those things, right? But nobody cared to hear my story. And I'm talking about nobody, like people that were close to me, all of a sudden just disappeared. So now I found myself more alone than I'd realized I would ever be. Not to mention I don't see my kids as often as I used to see them. All these kinds of things happened. So these are the kinds of things that happen to men that people either don't know about or don't talk enough about that men need help with. But now as I started to dig my way out of this hole, Pops became, even though he had already passed away, reflecting on my time with him became very instrumental, because it helped me understand that there's a way that a man needs to be that Pops exemplified that I had not seen before that. So I started adapting some of his ideas and principles as a part of building myself back up.
Like what? What were some of those ideas and principles? I know you mentioned, which is something that I also live by, is that how you do anything is how you do everything. Maybe that's one of them. I don't know, but that's one of the things that I personally live by, and I observe people, right? Like, let's just say that you and I are wanting to do business, and I see you and I go out to lunch, right? And you're wanting to do a deal with me. I'm a real estate guy. I buy real estate. I own a lot of real estate.
Nice.
So you're wanting to do a deal with me, right? And we haven't done a deal before yet.
Right.
And the waitress comes up and you treat them bad, and you speak badly to them, and you treat them with disrespect. Immediately, that's a major red flag for me, because how you treat her is how you're going to treat me and the team and the people we work with. If I see you, if we're friends, and this is no disrespect to any men that might be doing this, been there and done that and have my scars for it. If you're a man that is cheating on your spouse, right? Guess what, bro? You're gonna cheat on me in business, right? That's just the nature of it. How you do certain things is human nature. How you do certain things in one area of your life is the way you're gonna do certain things in other areas of your life. So tell me, what are some of those things that you've taken away, Jeremy, that helped you through this time from Pops?
So there are several, but I give you some of the most important ones. One of the things that Pops exemplified, one of the many things, is Pops had a purpose. And it had never occurred to me until being in this situation, reflecting on my time with Pops, that a man was supposed to have a purpose. That was a memo that I had never got. And I think that's a memo that most men these days don't have.
For years, man. Most young, especially young guys, they just don't, it's tough.
Right. And, if you're, a little bit old school like me, the old Scarface, a man without a purpose, life will drive him insane. It's the truest thing, right? It's the truest thing, because without a purpose, you don't have a North Star. Without a North Star, you don't have a sense of who you are, how you're supposed to show up, why you're doing what you're doing, and who's supposed to be involved in your life as what you're doing, right? Once you have a purpose, you can align everything else around and through that. Pops had a purpose. Pops, he loved fighting. He loved fighters, but he only wanted people that wanted to work hard and wanted to work hard his way. And he only wanted, consistency and dedication and hard work. You didn't have to be super talented. That's one of the things I love. Pops actually preferred. Pops is a rare kind of a person where he got a kick out of making a person like me, when he met me, like a person that was basically a loser. Like I had a losing record when I met Pops, right? And I turned that around by being with Pops. Pops enjoy taking people by losing records and making them winners. Whereas most coaches want to take a person that has a pretty good record or has a pretty good opportunity, has some skills, and they just want to, I get this guy early. It's like making an early investment. Or I get this guy early, this guy's going to be a monster. Like he's a wrestler, but he doesn't know anything about punching and kicking. I bring him in my camp. I'll make him teach him about punching and kicking, right? He has a high-level wrestling pedigree, right? Add some punching and kicking to him, champion, right? So Pops was like, I'll take you how you come, and I'll make you a champion. He was so convinced. He was essentially delusional, right? And another thing I learned about Pops, this is a guy that was ridiculously successful in what he did. It wasn't just me. It was champion after person that way before me. For example, Pops was a person that trained for future Hall of Famer Cain Velasquez, right? If you're an MMA fan, you know that name, right? So Pops was in his cabinet behind him, pushing him for many of his fights, right? So I'm saying all that to say that Pops is a man of purpose, and he was a man of distinction, and he was a man of honor, right? I train you, you show up this time, this place. Don't be late. And also, Pops is loyal. He said, you don't train with any other mid person, right? This blew my mind. I never heard this before. If you train with another mid person, pops would be like, he's basically like, are you cheating on me? Because if you're cheating on me, you're out. Right? I never heard that before. Most people, they don't care. You do whatever you think you need to do. Pops is like, no, you train my way. And Pops would say, you train my way, nobody ever is going to beat you. You have to kind of understand because I want to emphasize this because I think, and maybe it's just me, but I don't think so. Most men have never been, this is going to sound weird. You have to understand. Most men have never been loved on by another man, right? In a manly way, not in a weird way, okay? Most men have never been like loved so hard by another man in such a way where like, I believe in you, where you can't help but to believe in yourself. Most men have never experienced that, right? We don't have our fathers in our lives. Maybe our fathers they were physically present, but not emotionally present, right? And this was not like a sappy thing. Pops would make fun of you. He berates you, but there's love behind everything that he did. And I started to understand, like, man, I felt taken care of. I felt held. There's this one fight I went into where the second fight under Pops, where this kid was younger than me, he had a better record than me, and he was knocking everyone out. He was 6-3, knocking people out. He's like 27 when I fought. I was like 37, something like that. Or maybe he was 25 and I was 35, one of the two. But he was knocking everyone out. He was a late replacement for somebody else I was supposed to fight. But we looked at his tape. Pops that I could beat him. I said, okay. And so I trained for him, got ready. I'm feeling good, a couple weeks up until I'm feeling good. And I remember this moment right before I'm about to step into the cage. I remember this moment of thinking, holy shit, I'm about to fight this kid. This kid's really good. I might get knocked out in front of everybody. I got my friends there. I got my wife at the time there. I got clients there, right? I'm like, I might get knocked out cold. And in my mind, I'm just having this conversation. And I don't know what happened, but I promise you, what happened is Pop saw something. He was right there beside me. He said something to me. I remember walking in the cage. He was like, right on my ear. He said, don't worry. I'm be like an angel on your shoulder. I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. Yeah, I mean, you got to understand the power of it. Because we as men, we go out to the world and we have to build up our own armor. We have to build up our own shield, right? But we didn't have fathers, many of us. We didn't have fathers. We didn't have men or uncles. We had big brothers that were really there for us. And that creates an armor for you inside and out. It creates an armor for you on the outside of your body, but also creates like a confidence in you that you project out into the world. That makes it so much easier for you to accomplish, move forward, get rejected, bounce back. It makes everything so much easier, right? You have so much belief in yourself. And when you don't have that, there's an emptiness to you. And no matter how much work you do, no matter how hard you lift the weights and how hard you work out, it's going to be really hard to fill. You understand? It's going to be really hard to fill that role. It's going to be really hard to fill that not having that father say to you, I don't care what happens to you. Don't worry. No matter what, I'm going to be like an angel on your shoulder. I'm not going to let nothing happen to you. As a whole, it's hard to fill without that. Yeah. And that's what many of us men are walking around with, trying to figure out the world with this hole in our heart, not even realizing it, most of us.
So how do we, what are you telling a man that might be going through a difficult time, maybe going through a divorce right now, and it's in that down time? Remember that when you went through that spiral, that depression time? How was that for you, by the way? When you said you were depressed, tell us about that time. Tell us how deep you went in, and tell us about that experience when you were going through that. And at the same time, you lost this mentor in your life, and you went from depressed, and then you said you went in even deeper.
Yeah, I mean, it's odd. I try to. This is a very important point. I try to speak about this in a way that I speak about it sometimes. I think that if you were to hear me, people might think I'm exaggerating, like I'm trying to make it out to some movie, but it's not. It's just actually how it was. I remember very distinctly I left the house. I left with nothing, but at that time, I just had my car, clothes, and some books. I'm living in and out of a Motel 6 because my name is still on the house. So I can't, my credit looks like I have a house, so I can't get an apartment of my own because the math isn't mathing, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm like in and out of a Motel 6, calling friends, trying to see if there's somewhere I can stay until we figure out the finances or until I can get my name off of this thing, whatever. And I'm completely alone. I have people that I had known to this day. Brother, I have people I've known since I was in 7th grade. To this day, know everything. And they might have called me like twice. Right? I mean, after this, once the divorce process happened,
Mm-hmm.
Right? And there like a few of them. the mind of Carl never wanted, they know her side, never wanted to hear my side. Never cared to hear. Never cared to see how I was doing, where I was at, what was going on with me. People never checked it, right? Now, but at the same time, I've had a lot of grace. I have people that I had known for several years that I didn't even know were paying attention. That when they saw me, hey, how you doing? Hey, do you need a place to stay? Hey, how are your kids? People that I didn't even know knew that cared. So I had this really interesting juxtaposition of people in my world, that people that I didn't think would even care showed up. People that I thought I would never lose disappeared. But anyway, so going back to this moment, there's literally a moment where I'm on the floor of a Motel 6, crying basically, in the fetal position, and I have nothing, man. I'm low on money, I'm low on spirit, I have nothing. I have no one. I hadn't told my parents yet. I might have told my father, but my biological father, who I had known all these years, but him and I, our relationship was up and down, up and down. My mother and him divorced when I was really young, so at that time my connection was up and down with him, and I hadn't told my mom yet because I knew how disappointed she'd be. And I got tired of telling friends and then having them disappear, so I was all by myself. So I remember I just said, "Please help me."
Were you praying? Were you praying to God?
I prayed. I said, "Please help." And I felt like a little bit of relief. And then I thought, next day I was like, I don't want to do anything. You know, it's a weird place to be, like, because again, I came from, you know, when I was married, on paper I had everything. On paper, literally, house, 2 kids, white picket fence. But me and this person, it wasn't
working.
It wasn't working, right? Without going into details, and you work in now, so I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, right? But so we're great. We're good now. We co-parent very well, but it wasn't working. So I never imagined I'd be so alone, and it never would it occur to me in a million years I'd be so alone. And and I'm the kind of person where I feel like I've been there for everybody. Like, you would leave me alone, I've been there for you. You abandoned me? I was there with you. I was there for you when you needed somebody. You'd abandoned me? It didn't make any sense. So I just prayed. I said, "Please help me." And my first thing was, I said, I need an anchor. I realized I need an anchor, because I was at this place where I was like, if nobody cares about me this much, then maybe I don't matter. You know, you can get to this place where you're like, there's so many people that don't seem to give a fuck about me. So maybe they're seeing something that I don't. Maybe my life really is irrelevant. Like, maybe I don't need to be here anymore, right? So, so I'd go through these, I would have these movies that play in my head of my funeral.
Oh.
I would say to myself, well, if I'm no longer here, if I find a way to check out, what would my funeral look like? And I'd go through my day and I'd daydream about what my funeral would look like. And these people that abandoned me, that weren't there for me, that, whatever, that didn't show up. I'd imagine at my funeral saying whatever nonsense. I don't know. But it made me feel good, right? And I'm saying this to say this is a dangerous place to be. It made me feel good. It gave me some sense of relief. It was almost like a revenge.
It almost seems like you was like, and I know in a depressed mode, but I'm just looking at it from the outside in. It's like it made you feel good, feeling like a victim, like the victim, right? And I don't want to say that, but feeling good that people were saying what to you, were at your funeral crying for you because this happened to you.
And it made me feel vindicated in a weird way. I wouldn't necessarily say victim, because that particular place that I was at is not a place that I would want to be. It's not a place that I would want anybody to be. But you are right that there was a certain sense of kind of satisfaction. It was more like, I don't want to be the victim, but it's more like, if I am here, then if I am here, and if you guys left me here, something that I can never imagine doing to you, but if you guys left me here, then let me show you the consequences of leaving somebody here.
So how did you pull yourself out of that? So you've told us how dark that can get.
Yeah.
And that's pretty dark, by the way, brother. That's pretty dark, right?
Yeah.
So how does a man, so if someone's listening to us, men or a woman's going through a divorce, and and I reject this for any listeners, by the way. I reject this that you get those kind of thoughts. But someone's listening to us and they're going through that. What are you telling them to do to get themselves out of that funk right now? Right? To start taking themselves out of that hole.
You need it anchored, is my philosophy. And so as I started playing this movie in my head, I see the faces, I look at what people would say, and this person, I'd kind of play it back, and I'd see them crying. I wish I would have known all this stuff. Mm-hmm. In my mind, I'm like, yeah, fuck you, right? Mm-hmm. And then this camera would like pan, but then it'd go face, and then it'd drop down, and there were two boys, right? And then it's like just complete devastation. Just utter, just complex, devastated, angry, sad, every emotion. And then so now I'm like, so that I played this movie. This wasn't just once or twice. This was nights on nights. I played the movie over and over again. And it would stop when it get to my boys. Right? It would stop. The movie would stop. And then I'd have to I couldn't play it again. I'd still kind of be in a funk, but I couldn't play the movie anymore. And so what I realized is that what I was setting myself up for was to be in a situation where if spirit and souls are real, which I believe they are, I'm setting myself in a situation where I'm on the other side of the veil, right? If I follow through with this now plan, right? Now I'm on the other side of the veil. And now what I get is I have to watch my two boys go through life without me. Without being able to train them, coach them, encourage them, hold them, push them anymore. And on top of that, I did this to them. I put them in a situation where, right, they have to say to themselves, like, my dad was a fighter, my dad had his own business, my dad was a good person, but he couldn't do life? If he had all these things going for him and he couldn't do life, then what chance do I have? So now I have to be, like, as a soul on the other side of the veil, praying that they don't do what I just did.
That's what you mean by the anchor.
Right. I said, that's not. That's no way. So they anchored me to this world. I said, they don't deserve that. They didn't sign up for that. So they anchored me to, so to answer your question, you need something to anchor you to this world. Maybe it's your kids. Maybe it's your nephews and nieces. Maybe it's a promise that you made to your younger self that you are going to be this. Maybe it's a promise that you made to somebody who's passed away, your grandparents, your parents. There's got to be something that anchors you to this physical world.
So what strategy can you give someone that might be going through something like that, so that they can help them find that anchor? Do you have an exercise? Do you have something that you can recommend, maybe a journaling or something like that? Is there a particular exercise that you can say, hey, do this, this, and this, and this to help you find that anchor?
Yeah. I mean, who means more to you than you? Who means more to you than you?
That could be a parent, a kid, a grandparent, anything like that.
It could be anybody, right? It could even be somebody who's no longer here. Like, who means more to you than you? Well, Pops meant a lot to me. Aside from my kids, Pops meant a lot to me, right? Okay, well, Pops, how would Pops feel if you did this? What do you think Pops would say? If you told him you're having these thoughts and you're setting up this plan, what do you think his opinion of this would be? Do you think he would approve? Do you think he would back that? Or do you think he would be pissed off that you even considered that?
Yeah, you think that's very powerful, stuff. Let me ask you this, brother. What are some of the emotional and financial, social challenges commonly faced by both men and women after a divorce?
Well, my experience, and from my research, and also just people that I've spoke with that have been through divorce, they're almost completely opposite. The experience between a man and a woman, the majority of the time, are completely different, right? For example, okay, so the majority of divorces are initiated by women, something like 75 to 80%.
80%, right? I think is the number. Yeah.
Right? So that's number one, right?
Why is that, man? Do you have any data on that? Why is that?
Yeah, so the research says one of the biggest indicators of whether or not a couple will make it is their what they call bids for affection, right? Bids for affection.
What does that mean?
Right. So let's say I'm married to a young lady, and I come home and I'm like, I come home, I walk in the door, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired, it's such a long day, right? Here's all the time, right? That's a bid for affection, right? If I'm at the house, she comes in, she walks in the door. Oh my God, I had such a long day. My feet are hurting. That's a bid for affection. Now, she comes in the door. She says, my feet are hurting, right? I said, such a long day. I'm so tired. And my response is, well, you should hear about my day. Without recognizing it, I missed her bid for affection. And I might need a bid for affection as well, right? But we both have to be in tune with each other, depending upon the situation, the timing, and everything like that. But so research says that the biggest indicator of whether or not a couple make it is their ability to understand each other's bids for affection. Now, when it comes to divorce, the highest cited reason that women get divorced is essentially, it's like, I want to call it boredom, because I don't want to disrespect it, but it's almost like the woman got bored. The woman didn't feel seen, safe, and heard.
Well, that's a little more than boredom. Feeling seen, it's a big deal for women, right? In order for a woman to feel love, she needs attention all the time. So bid for attention, bid for affection. What else did you say? Seen. So the attention is the number one thing for them to feel love. What else did you say? Seen,
safe, and safe, and then secure.
Yeah, and then safety. Safety is safety and secure is almost the same thing. They're brothers and sisters, right? Or so one of women's highest value is safety, right? Financially and emotionally, they need to be able to feel safe with their man, that their man is going to protect them, that they can be safe and to express themselves, their ups and downs of their emotion, and we're not going to go crazy on them. I mean, I've been married for a little bit, so kind of understand these things.
Yeah, I mean, you can say seen, safe, and secure, and all three. She needs to be physically seen, safe, and secure. She needs to be mentally seen, safe, and secure. Emotionally seen, safe, and secure. I mean, it's a whole thing, right? So there's quite a bit going on in that scenario, and it's actually, so there's a lot going on, but it's actually there's a way it can be somewhat condensed, somewhat simplified. So what essentially happens, to answer your question, from my perspective, is that there's a misunderstanding of the masculine and the feminine, especially in our country right now. There's a misunderstanding of what the masculine is, the masculine energy, and misunderstanding what the feminine is, and there's a huge misunderstanding of how they marry each other. So what seems to be happening is that men believe that being masculine means going to work, providing, making money, but I don't necessarily have to see her, because that's what her friends are for. I don't necessarily need to make her feel secure, because that's kind of what I'm for, but that's also kind of what her friends are for. So men have seemed to make themselves almost like robots. Not that men have to be necessarily emotional themselves, though. Here's the thing: a man doesn't have to necessarily be emotional. He just has to be emotionally available enough for his woman to find comfort in him. So again, if a woman comes home and says, my day was so long, Susie's acting crazy, my boss doesn't know what he's talking about, he's a moron, the product's not working, process is not working, right? A man needs to be emotionally available enough to be like, I'm here, tell me, what is it?
Tell me about it, yeah.
He doesn't have to get all,
and we don't gotta fix it. Yeah, we just gotta listen.
Yeah, you just gotta be like, so then she'll be like, she'll get all her stuff out, she's like, I'm so glad I have you. And then she'll fall. Like, there's people that say, like, a woman's like a wave and her man's like a rock. Her waves need to be able to crash up against. I think that's very accurate, actually.
I never heard that before. That's a really good metaphor.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it. It's not mine. I got that from another, but I think that's a very good way of putting it. And men have not put we have been unable to put ourselves in that place, right? As far as the society as a whole, that's part of masculinity. We might think it's kind of being feminine or being weird, or we might go overboard and be like, oh yeah, and be like, kind of get girly. We don't have to do all that. You just have to listen, be solid, right? And just kind of hear her out. Maybe you're baking dinner for her. Oh, sorry. But that's all we have to do. And it's very simple. So if we can be firm on our masculine energy, if we can be strong, if we can be open, if we can be loving, but also be like Pops. We have purpose, we have direction, we have a way of being, right, about the world, right? That gives, and if the feminine that we've chose is like, we say, this is my purpose, this is who I am as a man and as a person. If you're along for this ride, great. If you're not, that's okay too. I'll find somebody who is. But this is where we are going, right? If you show up like that, with a purpose, with a mission, with a a way of being about yourself, a sense of integrity, and a sense of openness, a sense of humility, but also a little hardness. You have to be a little bit hard because you have to be a kind of man. It's not even boundaries. I think boundaries is kind of a weak word. It's kind of overused. I like more standards and expectations. You have standards for everybody in your life, your kids, your wife, your friends. You have expectations, right? When a woman steps into that, then she's like, I know what this man's about. I know where we're going. I know how he is. And I want to be a part of that.
That she feels safe and she feels seen and she feels secure.
The frame. And then she's like, okay, I see the frame now. He's going to hold this together. I'm going to fill it this part and this part and this part and this part and this part. I do this. Right? And now we have a whole system that's working together, right? But if you're not, man, you're like, I kind of do this and I kind of do that. I'm going to do this. And that's okay if you're figuring things out. But if you have no real purpose, if you have no real defined way that you show up in the world as a man, and you have no real North Star, it's going to be hard for women to really get on board with you for a very long time. Or if you started it for the North Star, but you kind of lose it and you can't get it back, you can't get that strength back, a woman's going to start to feel like, I'm not sure about this guy anymore.
So tell me, how did you find your North Star? How did you find your purpose? What can you tell young men? Tell us about how you found yours. And then how do you tell young men to, let's say a millennial or Gen Z listening, a young person listening right now, that's like, man, that sounds great. And we intuitively know as men that what you're saying is true. We know as men, our masculine knows that what you're saying is 100% correct, but we don't know how to put our fingers on that and we don't know how to put it, wrap our brains around that. How did you find yours and how do you tell a young guy to find his?
So this is great. There's a few different ways that you can find your purpose, right? So this is one of my favorite conversations. So I'm trying to think of how I want to approach this. So let's say some people would say that your purpose is your passion, right? Whatever you're excited about, what are you juiced up about? That's the thing, right? You really like drawing, or you really like using your hands. Maybe you want to be a carpenter. You really like, dancing and singing. That's your purpose. Maybe that's true. I tend to be more like your pain is your purpose. My philosophy is like your pain is your purpose, right? And the reason I say that is because the question you asked me, how did I find mine? There's a point where as I started to climb out of this hole, still in the Motel 6, but started climbing out of this hole, there's a point where I said, you know what? I don't know how it's going to happen exactly. And I remember distinctly having this conversation with myself because I remember where I was in the Motel 6. And I remember it was dark and I was looking in the mirror. I was walking to the bathroom and I thought to myself, this is going to be my purpose. Figuring out what it is that I'm going through and helping other people through it. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but I know this is my purpose.
Yeah, man.
I know. And I knew that like that. Like once it occurred to me, I was like, okay, well this is it. Now all the details will come later. And it took me some time, but this is it. So I think I think your purpose many times born from your pain. Now,
100%.
real quick, let's define purpose. Purpose, according to, Japanese term ikigai, which is your life having meaning, right? To give life meaning, right? Purpose is, ikigai is defined as 4 things, right? Something that you love to do, that'd be kind of like a passion, right? Something that you can make money from, something that serves others, what's the 4th one? I'm losing the 4th one. Something that you like to do, so you make money from, serves others, and I'm losing the 4th one. Let's say, the God-given talent. It's like your God-given talent and abilities, right? So it has to be something that's almost like instinctual, like a gift, gift that you have, but also it has to be something that you actually literally enjoy. I've met people that have gifts that they don't actually like to perform, right? So I've met people that are really talented in one way, but it's not really the thing that they like to do. So you have to be gifted in it. You have to be talented with it, right? Serves others is something that you can make money from. Now, me personally, I like to add a 5th, right? Something you can do for free. I don't think it has to be money tied, okay? But that's it. When you go through something that really kind of breaks your heart, really kind of breaks you down, really kind of forces you to reevaluate not only yourself, but humanity as a whole, if you can come out of that, there's some piece in there where you can start to say, I've been through this. I don't want anybody else to go through this. So I'm going to figure out a way to help people to not have to go through this or to shortcut their process through this. And that could still be anything. That could still be music. It could be poetry. It could still be something that's plumbing. Like my house blew up, or I had a plumbing issue. My house blew up. It was destroyed. I don't want anybody to go do this ever again. I'm gonna become the best plumber ever. Make sure you inspect people's houses, right? It could still be virtually anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it gives you something that's very personal. What it is, and because of that personal connection, because it happened to you or happened to somebody you know, love, and care about, it makes you want to. I don't want anybody else to have to go through this what I went through or what I've seen somebody else go through.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna do expert in this and take care of people as I can where I can.
I love that, man. I love the fact that you gave people some strategies there, and you're right. You know, as I think about my purpose, right? My purpose is to empower others to become the best version of themselves. That's why I podcast. That's why I host events.
Right.
A lot of everything I do ties back to that purpose, my anchor, to empower others. Well, I have guys like you here, right? That's serving my purpose through this podcast, through you, you empowering others to become better. And
Thank you. You know, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I had a question for you. And then before I forget, you're a realtor, yes?
No, I'm not. I'm an investor. I'm not a realtor.
You're an investor.
So
Okay.
I buy apartment buildings and I rent them, and I buy fixed properties and I sell them.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to go into that field of business, and is that tied to your purpose?
Certainly is. It certainly is. This is tied to my purpose. This conversation is tied to my purpose. So at 16, I got kicked out of my house, pain. And I remember sleeping in the trains in New York City, saying to myself in those dark moments, just like you said, I will never go through this again. I realized something quick early at 16, that you need two things as a human being. You need shelter and you need food. And I was shelterless. And I said, I made an unconscious decision that I will never go through this pain ever again. Wow. And that's why I decided to go into real estate investing and buying real estate, because now I have hundreds of apartments. I will not be homeless. I will never be homeless.
That's an amazing story. I love that, brother. That's
so you're 100% right. How your purpose comes from your, and it takes introspection. It takes maturity. It takes time to realize that. Like, you realized it that day you was in that Motel 6 walking to the bathroom, and you looked at yourself and you were like, boom, this is it. From here, I'm going to help other men never go through this again. Right? For me, from there, after I figured that out and I was broke and poor and homeless, then I was like, okay, now I want to empower people and help people become financially free. Again, back to empowering, right? Because it sucks to be poor. It sucks to not have a place to live. It sucks to be living check to check. How can I do that, right? Through coaching. I coach people through real estate investing. I host this podcast. I have people like you come here, right? Like you said, like I don't get paid for this, right? This is me learning from you.
That's my point. That's exactly my point. Beautiful. Yeah.
I don't get paid for this. This is me learning from you, right? Taking those nuggets and those lessons that you're giving me, and the listeners are also taking it in and they're learning, and it's serving multiple purposes, right? It's serving your purpose. You're serving your purpose. You're helping me serve my purpose, and the listeners are getting value, and we're both having an exchange of information where we're both getting better. Ironing, sharpening iron. So 100%, man. It comes from pain. And when you're in those dark moments, oftentimes when you're in those dark moments, we're going through some challenges right now in our business. And I literally was out for a walk this morning, and I told my team, I said, hey guys, when we get on the other side of this, because the future, I have this coin, I'll share it with you. I carry it with me. Carry it with me all the time. And here's what it says. I don't know if you can see it. Future looks bright.
It looks bright.
Looks bright.
Yeah, that's what's up.
And I literally was on the phone with my team. I said, when we come out on the other side of this, we're going to share this experience and everything we've learned through this, so that other investors don't have to go through the shit that we're going through. And we're going to share on what happened and how what we learned from it, and how to protect yourself for this happening to you. And I'm a seasoned investor, and the shit that's happening right now, it's just like, holy crap, this one escape me? But we're always learning and we're always getting better.
Right.
So to your point, man, it always comes from pain, brother. It always does. It always comes from it comes. Well, I don't know always, but I could tell you my purpose came from pain. Seems like yours came from pain. And I've interviewed hundreds of people here, and I asked that same question. Hey, man, how does a young man find purpose? How do you do that, right? And it always relates somehow, ties back to that.
Yeah. And I would go even further and say that, because purpose has different aspects, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, there's an aspect of your purpose that's in real estate investing, and there's an aspect of your purpose that's in podcasting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So purpose has aspects to it. You can attack it. But just like people say, a lot of your adult trauma starts in childhood, I think a lot of your adult triumphs also start in childhood. Because as a child, I was very much into martial arts and Bruce Lee and Jet Li, and I was into like looking fit and sports and building my body. I didn't understand it at all to the degree that I do now, but it's infused, that journey through martial arts and fitness has infused and informed that the way that I coach and the way that I approach life, right? I believe life is a fight, but it's not a fight it's not like a physical fight. It's more like an internal fight, you versus you, right? The lower self. You're constantly, every decision you make, every moment, you're going back and forth. Or which one? Every choice is one or the other. Every choice. But your objective is, you have to be mindful that if your life is a fight, your lesser self versus your higher self, then the one that's going to win is the one you feed.
100%.
And feeding is the feeding, right? So when I look at people, I take fighting figuratively, I look at it literally as well. Like, for example, when you mentioned if you go to dinner with a person and you see how they treat the waiter, right? And so for me, if I'm meeting somebody new and they don't work out and they don't have to be like shredded. I just mean just training. I don't care how your body looks. I just care you're pushing yourself, right? If they're not doing some kind of training of some sort, or if they've never been punched in the face, life has never been punched in the face. If they've never been like literally
fit a fight,
face, I'm like, I don't know about this guy. I don't say that, but in my head, because there's a certain reaction. When life punches you in the face, like you're mentioning what you guys are dealing right now. When life punches you in the face, some people have a different reaction, right? I've seen people that looked really tough, that got punched in the face, that shrank, that their whole aura shrank. And I watch people get punched in the face and be like, oh, now we're fighting. I watch people like turn switch. And I'm like, I want to roll with that person.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's a great analogy. I'm a big Tony Robbins guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Tony Robbins.
Of course.
I've been to all of his events. A business partner, a plat. So anyways, so Tony says when life hits you in the face, a great reframe is, instead of getting down and like, oh fuck, this and that, a worthy opponent, right? It just shifts your mindset.
Yeah.
A worthy opponent. So it just okay. Now I gotta I got some worthy opponent in the arena, right. And I gotta figure out how to beat this opponent, right? Instead of feeling down or shrinking, use words and language to reframe the situation.
Right. That's right.
So it aligns with what you're saying right there. Not shrink, but stand up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, stand up. Yeah, stand up. And it's it's not nice. I've had plenty of fights that I've lost. I've buddies that I've lost. I've fight situations where I got hit and I shrank. I got hit and I was like, I can't do this, right? But my thing is, the only thing that made me anywhere near, that gave me any success in any regard whatsoever, is not when it comes to fighting or anything, business or personal, anything. It's not. I was fighting. I was never the fastest guy in fight. In martial arts, I was never the fastest. I was fast, but I was never the fastest. I was strong, but I've never been the strongest. I was fit, but I was never the fittest. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I can see that's made me different, that's given me any level of success in any regard, in any aspect of life, is the fact that I'm willing to come back and try again. I've had times, I've had sparring sessions, I've had years where I got beat up by the same 3, 4, 5 people over and over and over.
Wow.
Over again, right? So, but I came back and I said, you know what? I remember this one particular, when I first started kickboxing, training at Kung Lee's, there's this guy, I tell this story, it's a true story. I tell this guy, there's this guy, we'll call him Benny. And when I first started kickboxing, I've been doing karate for the longest time, point sparring, 2 points, right, whatever. And I thought I was awesome, black belt, everything. I go to mixed martial arts, I go to kickboxing, and I start sparring with Kung Lee's guys, and I'm getting lit up first day, like as if I don't know anything, and I can't figure this out. So that was like day one, year one. I go a year in, I'm still getting beat up by people. There's one guy, we call him Benny, and Benny used to light me up every single time we sparred. It was so bad, I couldn't even see what he was doing to me. I would just watch him move, and I would cover up, and I would just feel like shots. And I didn't know what was happening. And I tried to get my shots in. It was like, and I remember one day I just broke down, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I called my buddy. I called my karate buddy. I was like, I know nothing. All this years of training, what am I doing here? Right? He just tried to give me some advice. And I remember this particular moment I wanted to quit. I'm about a year in, I wanted to quit because it's like way harder than I thought it would be. But then I said to myself, if I quit now, I'll never know why they are so much better than me. If I quit now, I'll never know why they are so much better. I'll never know what's happening. So I decided, I got myself together. I went into that training session, got beat up that day. But soon I'm continuing to train, and I get to this point where Benny's not coming to practice anymore. I don't know why. He's not coming to practice. So I keep coming, keep going. I'm slowly getting better, slowly getting better. 6 months, more or less in, he comes back. Might have been 8, but just say 6 or 8. He goes back. Now I've gotten better. Now I'm starting to land shots on people. But I remember how I used to kick my ass, right? Mm-hmm. So the coach matches us up. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. So all of a sudden now, Benny's doing his moves. None of his moves are working. And I'm catching him with my moves. And I'm having a field day. I'm having a great time. So I think to myself, well, I wonder if I use my specialty. I've been working on this move, spinning back kick, right? I've been working on it. I was like, I don't want to land this on him. So I would do something. I throw the spinning back kick on him. I land. He takes in the liver. He goes, he goes down. He drops down to the ground. And I'm like, and we're sparring, right? So it's like nobody has any love for anybody. We're all assholes. So, it's like alpha on alpha. Everybody's an asshole. So I drop him. And he's not like bleeding or dying, but I drop him. And I'm like, hey, you good? He's like, yeah, I'm good. And I walk away, right? Perfect. I'll find somebody else to spar with, right? But here's the thing. I never saw him again. To this day, I've never seen him again since that date, right? So from that day on, I never saw him at a fight. I never saw him at another practice, event, nothing. And I had been in the fight game for a long time, right? Different gyms. Never saw him again. So I'm saying all that to say that I got my ass kicked for about a year, almost a year and a half, about a year straight by the same people. This guy was the main guy. This was the main guy that kicked my ass, right? But I stuck around long enough to figure it out. And I think that's the point. That's the biggest lesson that I think, one of the biggest lessons that life has to teach about success is to stick around long enough to figure it out.
That's awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much, man, for coming on the show and sharing all of these wonderful metaphors, your experience with divorce and life and, your mentors. Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's been an awesome pleasure to have you on and you sharing all of your insights and wisdom. If people wanted to connect with you, Jeremy, maybe they wanted to bring you on as their coach, or they wanted to just follow you on social, connect with you, how do they find you? Where do they go? Maybe they resonate with you and they're like, yeah, man, I want to get coached by him. Or, maybe I can talk to him. Maybe I'm, going through a divorce and maybe he can help me get through this time. How do they find you? Where do they connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm easy to find. Facebook /Jeremy D. Murphy. You can friend me, message me coaching, and then we can talk about coaching sessions, or you can just follow me and just get the content that I put out. I'm on Facebook a lot. Also LinkedIn /Jeremy D. Murphy. I put a lot of content on Facebook and LinkedIn. I'm also on TikTok, but I'm new to TikTok, so there's a little bit there. And then the other place to find me is my website, www.jeremydmurphy.com. And if you are a man, and you're in a situation, a male or female, but a man in particular, because if you're a man and you're going through a situation like a death of a loved one, depression or divorce, there's a good chance that you're by yourself. So there's a couple of things that I feel like you need to know. First of all, you need to know we have something around 40 to 50,000 men that take their own lives every single year. 40 to 50,000 men unalive themselves, as they say, every single year. That's not including men that lose their lives in the armed forces, men that lose their lives in police work, men that lose their lives in, that might be firemen, not including any of that. People that take their own lives. And that is a tragedy that our nation has not addressed and needs to. And until our nation addresses it, the men like you and I have to. These men need to know that they are loved, they're needed, and they're respected, and they are needed right here, right now. Right? You're loved, you're respected, and you are needed right here, right now. You are needed with us, right? We need to create a team within a team, right? So we need men to kind of gather together to hold each other accountable, but also to hold each other up. And if you're a man, you're by yourself and you're not sure where to go with the processes, I created a course based on what I was sharing right now, my philosophies and how I got myself out of this dark space when I was by myself. And it's called FIGHT. FIGHT is an acronym. FIGHT stands for Faith, Inventory, Growth, Habits, and Team. It's a framework to help you work your way out of this darkness and drag yourself out of it so that one day you can walk confidently with your head high back into the light. Right? I now am at a place I had never been before. Right? And I'm still just scratching the surface of my potential. But it started with faith. It started with a prayer. The framework is outlined for you. So if you go to www.jeremydmurphy.com and click Fight Back, you can get a little information about the program. I'm offering the program at a discount. Purpose 200. You put in Purpose 200, you get instant $200 off. But I want men to know they are loved, they are needed, they are highly respected, they are appreciated, and we need them here with us right here, right now. And if you don't believe that, if you're not sure how to get back out of that, the Fight Back program is designed for you to do.
I have one last question for you, brother. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you that would have provided a tremendous amount of value to the listeners and myself?
One of the things that you didn't ask me that I think is of great value is how did I deal with the people that I thought I would never lose that disappeared on me, right? And I think I don't know of a man yet, me personally, I haven't heard of a situation where a man got a divorce. Well, I might know of one, but where a man got a divorce and he didn't lose a bunch of his friends. He didn't lose a bunch of people that he loved and that he trusted, or at least some, right? I haven't met a man that's been through, or many men, I should say, that have been through this situation that don't feel betrayed by people that they thought were supposed to have. So what that creates is it creates a lot of anger and distrust and frustration, right? Resentment. And that's natural. But what you'll start to see as you crawl out of this hole is that resentment will, at first it feels like a power, it feels like a strength, and it is. That anger is kind of a strength in the beginning. But at some point it starts to become like a poison, and you have to start to let it go. I've been betrayed by a lot of people. I've been let go by, and women too, women that I've dated that were not good. I've been betrayed by a lot of people. And I've had to slowly let pieces of that go. Because if you don't let it go, it'll hold you back from rising to the potential that you truly have. Part of letting go is forgiveness. You have to learn how to forgive. Now, I have a course on that as well, but the main thing I want to talk about right now is that you have to learn that people can only behave, I heard this before, people can only behave to the level of their belief. People can only behave to the level of their belief. So people are going to believe that you're a bad guy, they're going to behave toward you like you're a bad guy. Even if you're not. But that's not on you, that's on them. You have to be able to let that go. Because if you don't let it go, you're not hurting them, you're only hurting yourself. So forgiveness is a big part of the process. I talk about forgiveness in the Fight Back course. Forgiveness is a big part of the process of you getting to the man that you should be and the man that you can be, and not allowing other people to.
It's awesome, brother. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you again for showing up, man. And thank you for doing what you're doing. What you are doing is super valuable for the world, right? You're bringing light to the world. And thank you for your message, and thank you for doing what you're doing, brother. It's much appreciated. I appreciate it. I appreciate you doing it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Thank you, man.